The Bengals are now on the clock. Adam, what can you tell us about the Bengals' newest player?
This is a player that many felt could be a solid role player in the NFL, but not a dominant force. That train of thought changed after one of the best defensive performances the College All-Star Game has ever seen. At times, it seemed as if he were everywhere on the field during the game, disrupting both the run and pass game for the opposition. Several scouts I spoke with pointed to that performance as evidence he could dominate at a high level, and sources have told me that more than one general manager felt he was the type of defender you could build a franchise around. Now all that's left for him to prove is if the All-Star Game was an aberration or a sign of things to come.
Well, if you're wondering what the delay is, I think we've got a trade coming here.
The Eagles are now on the clock. The Dolphins are now on the clock. All right, team is now off the clock. Adam Schefter, can you tell us about their newest player?
Well, there isn't much to say other than this kid was born to run. He's the spitting image of his father, a nationally ranked sprinter in several major events and highly recruited by every major college. However, unlike his dad, he chose to pursue a career in football, and so far that decision is paying off. He may not be gold medal fast, but he has the speed and quickness to cause fits for the opposing team. He's the type of player you like to see out in the open field where he can make moves a lot of other players can't. The coaches are going to love having his speed at their disposal.
The 49ers are now on the clock. The Patriots are now on the clock. The Falcons are now on the clock. Adam, what can you tell us about that last pick?
Every year, there are a number of players who shine in the All-Star Game getting attention around the league. And this year, he was one of those stars. He blew up in the College All-Star Game, finishing with multiple sacks and a forced fumble. The one word Matt Miller gave me to describe his play was relentless. He was on top and on the attack all game long, and he never seemed to tire from it. They tried rotating fresh offensive linemen in to stop him, but each one failed to slow him down. Now that he's on a team, he'll just have to wait and see if he can carry over that same aggressive play from college to Sunday.
The Giants are now on the clock. The Chargers are now on the clock. The Buccaneers are now on the clock. The Broncos are now on the clock. The Saints are now on the clock. The Redskins are now on the clock. The Texans are now on the clock. The Cardinals are now on the clock. The Colts are now on the clock. The Bills are now on the clock. The Panthers are now on the clock. The Browns are now on the clock. Now that White's off the board, Adam, what do you have on him?
I heard he surprised several scouts at his pro day when he showed up looking a lot leaner, and the difference showed when he went through drills. He turned in slightly faster times than expected in every major drill and displayed improved footwork compared to how he looked at the tail end of the season. I've heard from a few different coaches that they'd like to see him put some weight back on, yet keep playing as quick as he currently is. Whether he does that or not, I think we'll see him on the line on Sundays.
The Cowboys are now on the clock. The Raiders are now on the clock. The Seahawks are now on the clock. The Rams are now on the clock. The Steelers are now on the clock. The Chiefs are now on the clock. The Bears are now on the clock. Adam, what can you tell us about the Chiefs' newest player?
He was once regarded as the top quarterback in the draft, but a string of poor performances and a losing season had teams questioning his original position on their boards. He seemed to get in a rut this season, making several critical mistakes while reading coverage that led to interceptions. Once in the rut, he was never able to pull himself out of it, with scouts expressing concern with his accuracy and decision-making abilities. Apparently, these concerns were not enough to keep him from being drafted. GMs either turned a blind eye to his play this year, or they see something in him that others don't right now. This is an interesting pickup.
The Falcons are now on the clock. The Eagles are now on the clock. The Jets are now on the clock. The Saints are now on the clock. Pick's been made. Let's go to Adam Schefter to hear more about the player.
He spent the entire offseason working on his footwork and mechanics, and when scouts finally had a chance to see him up close at his pro day, they came away hopeful but not thrilled. As Matt Miller put it, He looked okay during drills, but the most important thing he showed was improvement in just a few months. He's not exactly ready to lead an offense, but I'm guessing the team is committed in developing him further.
The Patriots are now on the clock. The Packers are now on the clock. Now that the Ravens have made their pick, let's go to Adam Schefter to hear more about him.
A consistent performer his entire college career, he went out on a high note in his final game, recording 3 interceptions and being named the player of the game. General managers have been close to a sure thing, as there is in this draft. He'll have plenty of opportunity to showcase his coverage skills this season, as he'll likely line up against some of the NFL's most elite wide receivers.
The Packers are now on the clock. The Titans are now on the clock. The Cowboys are now on the clock. The Raiders are now on the clock. The Packers are now on the clock. The Rams are now on the clock.
Well, wait, looks like both war rooms are feverishly back on the phones. I think that means a trade is coming.
The Steelers are now on the clock. The Chiefs are now on the clock. The Saints are now on the clock. The Bengals are now on the clock. The Rams are now on the clock. Rams have just made their pick. Adam, what can you tell us about them?
Every year, a handful of prospects turn down their All-Star Game invitations, so a second round of invites are always sent out. He's fortunate to have been one of those last-minute additions this year, and he didn't take the opportunity for granted. He was the guy all the scouts fell in love with all through practices and game day. His performance was impressive enough in the game to slowly creep up the NFL draft boards, and he's being taken here, which is much sooner than most experts predicted.
The Bengals are now on the clock.
How come nobody's at the podium? That's because both teams are right now working on a trade.
Our very own Adam Schefter has more to say about this pick.
Matt Miller was glued to the ongoing soap opera that was his story this season. A feared pass rusher, he couldn't quite seem to play with the same intensity on a week-to-week basis. Some weeks he looked absolutely unstoppable, terrorizing opposing quarterbacks. Others he looked out of place, struggling to make any sort of impact, even taking himself out of the game multiple times in fits of frustration. Some GMs I spoke to felt that his lack of consistency was due to a lack of maturity, something that can be easily addressed by the right coaching staff. This pick could have tremendous upside or could end up as a what could have been story. It should be interesting to see how this saga plays out.
The Giants are now on the clock. All right, let's go to Adam Schefter, who's got more on this pick.
It's no surprise seeing him get drafted at this point, considering he was one of the hottest running backs in college this year. When's the last time he rushed for less than 100 yards in a game? If you check, it was actually 2 seasons ago, and that was due to a minor injury. The guy's a threat to take it to the house every time he touches the ball. And if he gets by that first tackle, watch out because it's daylight from there on. As long as he can quickly adjust to the speed of the NFL, he has the potential to be a great back for this team.
The Buccaneers are now on the clock. The Raiders are now on the clock. The Saints are now on the clock.
Hold on now. This pick is trading teams.
The Packers are now on the clock. The Saints are now on the clock. The Bengals are now on the clock. The Bears are now on the clock. The Falcons are now on the clock. The Ravens are now on the clock. The Saints are now on the clock.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a trade.
The Packers are now on the clock. The Falcons are now on the clock. The Falcons are now on the clock. The Saints are now on the clock. The Dolphins are now on the clock. The Saints are now on the clock. The Eagles are now on the clock. The Saints are now on the clock.
I see both teams filling out cards. You know what that means? We've got a trade.
The Falcons are now on the clock. The Falcons are now on the clock. The Saints are now on the clock.
Well, if you're wondering what the delay is, I think we've got a trade coming here.
The Texans are now on the clock. The Saints are now on the clock.
Well, wait, looks like both war rooms are feverishly back on the phones. I think that means a trade is coming.